This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project with your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com.
What up, crowdfunders? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. And I have to start off this episode with apologizing to you. Man, I am so sorry. So this rarely happens, but I got a bit of information wrong in today's podcast interview. And I was just doing some pre-research, which I do for the interviews. And I had saw that this entrepreneur had created 2 different projects. And when we were in the interview stage, I just kind of was looking through their profile and I mistakenly read they had created 7 projects, but in actuality, it's 2 projects and they had backed 7 projects. So you're going to hear me in the beginning of the interview basically say that. You can just ignore that. That was Sal having too much coffee, being too amped up before the show. Yeah, but I thank you for at least rolling with that. The guest was very nice about it. He told me afterwards he was just kind of rolling with it when I said it. But later on, he cleared it up. So it was good that happened. But even so, the guests that I had on today's podcast, they raised $30,000 with their first Kickstarter campaign for the Yoga Flexor. And of all the interviews that I've done, I've noticed that recently the guests have just been incredible, about sharing good information. And all the guests have been, but exceptionally, I would say. So today, you're going to hear about tips when it comes to manufacturing a project, when it comes to the fulfillment, when it comes to actually how do you get something made, creating the prototypes, as well as the things that worked well for this Kickstarter campaigner. So how did he actually get backers? How did he use Facebook to his advantage? How did he use some of the other tools that are out there, that are out there in the universe of crowdfunding in order to actually accelerate some of his results? And this one really cool tidbit or one bit of feedback here that I had was this guest basically spent a little bit of money on Facebook ads and some other stuff. And he was able to send $10,000 worth of pledges to his Kickstarter campaign. Man, that is crazy. I have all the time talking with entrepreneurs and coaching entrepreneurs, and a lot of the times we're in a very consumer expenditure mindset when we're thinking about buying things like ads or thinking about using services or even hiring a coach. We always are all in the consumer mindset, but a business owner has to think about, okay, does this make sense given the ROI? If I spend money on coaching, is that going to put me in a better position to raise more money on Kickstarter? Or if I spend money on advertisements and end up raising 4, 5, or 6x, is that a good investment? And as long as the ROI is positive, usually the answer is always yes. You're looking for ROI positive expenditures, the ones that put money into your pocket. And you sort of pay less attention to price over time. A good way to think about this is if you were to spend $1,000, would it make sense to do that? Now, when I say that, most people are like, no, why would I spend $1,000? That's a ton of money. But if you frame it more as, would you spend $1,000 in order to generate $10,000? Heck yeah, anyone would do that. That's an amazing investment. So you're going to hear a little bit about that on today's podcast episode. The one thing I want to mention before we go into today's show is that one of the resources that this guest mentioned is Crowdster. Crowdster, Crowdster. If you are interested in using Crowdster, this is a directory where you can download basically information on backers. You can create lookalike audiences. They have some other stuff that come with their software tool where you can market and promote your project. If you use this link, crowdcrux.com/crowdster. It will help reward the show. I will get a small commission at no expense to you. And I just put that money back into producing more quality episodes for you. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, you've liked some of my other episodes, you can use the link crowdcrux.com/crowdster if you want to check out that software tool that the guest is going to mention on today's episode. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Anthony, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you on. You've had many successful Kickstarter campaigns. Looking at your profile, it looks like you launched about 7 of them. Your most recent one for the Yoga Flexor raised just under $30,000 on Kickstarter. It seems like you have a lot of good advice to share with the audience. So I just want to thank you for coming on and looking forward to talking with you.
Thanks for having me, Sal. Appreciate it.
Where in the world are you located? Where are you hailing in from?
I am in Panora, Iowa. It's right next to Des Moines. So, yeah, we're right out in the middle of the U.S., I guess.
And, I live in sort of a New York City. So it's a really metropolitan area in business, lots of startup companies, lots of technology. Do a lot of people know about Kickstarter there? Are a lot of people launching businesses there?
I'll just flat out tell you, no, they don't. There's not that entrepreneurial vibe here. And when we went out to San Diego, my wife and I were just blown away. It's kind of like what we want to be around in the future.
Yeah.
We just don't have that here in Iowa, not right now. So that's definitely something we want to look into.
How did that actually then catch on for you? You're talking about the environment not really being conducive to that. And I thrive so much, I think, just from being around other people doing cool stuff. How did you get that entrepreneurial bug? Like, what made you want to create your own thing?
To be honest, I think it was natural. All the way back to high school, I was always trying to come up with ideas. I was annoying my then girlfriend, now wife, all my friends. I was that annoying guy that always had ideas. I tried starting my own blog. I had 30 writers for me, but I couldn't monetize that. And I just always had that entrepreneurial bug. But I guess I was just an entrepreneur at the time, really.
Mm-hmm. And then Kickstarter came into the picture. I mean, you've launched a bunch of projects. When did that sort of enter the story?
Well, originally I just post my ideas to Reddit, and, they can give you, really good feedback. They can be, that site's pretty rude at times. So they'll tell you the truth. And when I think I have a hit, I just go with it. And that's basically how my Kickstarter passion started.
Did they then tell you about Kickstarter, or was that something that you knew beforehand?
I've heard of it, but I didn't really look into it until, I really, wanted to drive into making products.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I love Reddit. Honestly, I think you get really good, almost brutal feedback at times. And it's an entire community of itself. You have all these different subreddits that are into different things. So it's also really good from a marketing and a promotion standpoint. But I love it. There's a crowdfunding Reddit, Kickstarter one. So I definitely go and check those out from time to time. I do think that, just hearing you talk about some of the ventures that you've done, you mentioned blogging. I think there's a really different thing when it comes to actually creating a physical product, actually creating something that is going to be in other people's hands. So when you went on Kickstarter for the first time, was that your first physical product, or had you done one before?
Right. So it was my first, and it can be truly difficult. And looking online, it's very hard to find information on how to, take your idea and turn it into a physical product. And usually it costs a lot of money, but I didn't have the money and I wanted to start on it. So just took it upon myself to get going.
So for those out there that are sort of in the same position that you were, I also have looked online. I'm like, geez, there's just a dearth of information, a lack of information when it comes to finding suppliers, when it comes to finding manufacturers. There are all these middlemen also, if you don't know the industry. Can you give us a few tips on how it is that you were able to create this product, advice you have for others, et cetera?
Right. So I'll tell you, why I came up with the original Yoga Flexor. My wife was finding it difficult to work out after having our son. She had a whole bunch of fitness products laying around our house. I would step on and break my toe. And we weren't traveling with them. And with our son, we were traveling a lot. So I saw all these fitness products that she had, and I wanted to roll them into one. So I thought, how am I going to do that? So in the past, I taught myself Photoshop with doing the blog. And I went into Photoshop and started designing it. And I told myself, don't pursue this unless you're going to go to Home Depot, Menards, and start building it. So for 2 weeks, I sat there and built actually 5 prototypes. It came out to like $600 because I'm not really that great of an engineer. I had a lot of mess ups. So built the prototypes, and then I posted it to Reddit. And Reddit's like, Alibaba, you have to go that route. Mm-hmm. So I interviewed, I guess you could say, about 20 manufacturers. Turns out in the US with small fitness products, they don't make them here. If you do get them made here, they're still getting them from overseas, China. So interviewed about 20 of them, got it down to about 4 or 5. And they believed in my product so much, and I believed in them, that they actually made 3D designs for me for free.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Absolutely. If any of you out there have looked at the cost for that, it could be very expensive, and they look great. And I finally narrowed it down to my current manufacturer, just through talking with them for weeks. You just get that feel of who's going to be the right fit for you.
Yeah. So you were finding them all on Alibaba. You did the interviews. You sort of narrowed it down there. When you were talking with these manufacturers, I know one common question I always get is, hey, Sal, these manufacturers, they only want to talk with you if you're doing like massive order quantities. You know, you're getting lots and lots of large volume for them. Otherwise, it's not really worth their time and their business. How did you sort of snake around that, or how did you get around that?
Well, I had all the photos. I had all the workouts with my prototype that I built. And basically all of them talked to me for weeks and gave me, the time of day. They wanted to be a part of it, and they saw what I was being told is they saw the potential in it. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to invest their time into partnering with me. So in my case, they just believed in the product so much that, we were talking every night. And it helped having the prototype. You gotta, if it's a physical product, you gotta try to make it and really put it out there.
So let me
be transparent.
Yeah. Let me ask you just like a dumb question here too. So was there a language barrier? If you're getting outsourced and you're getting manufacturers from China, was there any kind of language barrier in describing the things or the designs to the manufacturer?
That's not a dumb question, because that question comes up. It's probably the number one asked question, I would say, when I'm through my research. No, I didn't have a problem with that. Maybe 5 or 6 of them, there was totally an issue there. But really the ones I talked to, especially in the fitness space, they spoke English really well, especially my manufacturer. Even I went to China and visited with them, and they were great.
Mm-hmm. So for others out there that are looking to get their product manufactured, I guess the first step, you were lucky enough that they did this for you on, their own, because they believed in you. Right. You would advise that people would get a 3D printed prototype initially, I guess, of the product. Is that what you would say?
Well, you don't have to. I originally designed it on Photoshop. You can teach yourself that because it was self-taught for me. And, absolutely, you can go with that. And eventually, yes, you're going to need that 3D design, especially for getting it mass produced and for patent purposes, I guess. So you're definitely going to need one eventually for a physical product. But in my case, it worked out where they did it for me.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that prototype is so important? And even if it's something rudimentary, like going to Home Depot and putting this together yourself, why is it so important to have that prototype?
Because in my case, when you're explaining it, people just have no clue what you're talking about, especially when it's such a new product to the market. They've never heard of the Yoga Flexor. They have no clue what you're talking about. You can only explain so much. And when you have that physical product that you can say, here it is, here's what it looks like, they're like, oh. And then I can show the workouts, what benefits you get out of it, show the materials and get the dimensions right. So that's why I did 5 prototypes, because the dimensions constantly were changing. So that's basically the reason for the prototype.
The other thing I think that it really plays in is by just seeing the form factor, getting a sense of how the person uses the product, it sort of crops up all these new questions that you have, or like, oh, maybe it should be made out of this and not that. Or maybe this looks great or seemed great in my mind, but in actuality, it makes this one exercise really difficult. So it sort of cements, I think, a lot of those things in your mind, and it also brings up new questions that you have to answer.
Right. That is exactly right.
So you have this great prototype. I think, doing all that yourself, learning the Photoshop, putting this together when you're not an engineer, that's a lot of stuff, dude. So kudos. That's a lot of mastery. But as an entrepreneur, you got to wear multiple hats. So I'm sure you're used to that. So you've got this together. And now it's like, okay, this is something that I want to focus on. I see the need. I see the exercises we can do. I'm getting a full picture of the vision here. What was the next step? Were they asking you like, okay, now how many of these do you want to order? Was there some kind of minimum order quantity? What was like the next step there?
Right. So once you have your prototype, you're going to need one from the manufacturer. I actually still kept in contact with a couple different ones, but I knew who I was going to go with. So I had them send me their prototype based off of mine and the 3D designs. So once they sent me that, then you're like, wow, this is a real thing. And once I had that, that's when I told them I'm going to go the Kickstarter route. I can't order. So my minimum order quantity was about 850 units. And I told them, well, I need to sell X amount on Kickstarter for me to get into production. And I did have, money put aside in case this Kickstarter campaign didn't go as planned, but obviously the goal was set on Kickstarter to get into production.
So when you were having that conversation with the manufacturer, did you decide to go with them because of the price, because it was the best price? Why did you choose them specifically?
No, it wasn't price really. I didn't really focus on that. It was my communication with them, them believing in me enough to create designs for me. And they were on the ball. They were emailing me every night. They actually dropped their prototype was dropped down to like $800. And if anyone has looked at prices for a lot of prototypes, it's going to cost a lot more from a manufacturer than $800. So they got that. I would say in 2 weeks, they had their prototype based on my designs in mind. So that was awesome relationship that we had.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today.
So you basically then have to, your plan is, I guess, to launch a Kickstarter campaign for the Yoga Flexor, and with the goal of hitting that minimum order quantity, or at least getting a certain bulk of that. And then you would sort of supplement with your own funds for the rest.
Right. So I wanted to get super close. It was kind of strategic to put it at 15,000. I probably needed 25,000, but once you get funded, once they see you're funded, that brings in a lot more backers because you're funded, they're going to get the product, brings excitement. So in case we, just barely hit our goal, I did have plans set up to where we could get that minimum order quantity.
I think that's really important too, because you want to make sure that, it's great to have a successful campaign, but the real success comes in actually delivering those rewards and shipping them out to your backers. So I think that the fact that you also plan for that, that says a lot. It says that you're committed to actually getting this into the hands of the people that are supporting you in this innovation process.
That's exactly right. If you don't deliver, you're probably not going to be back on Kickstarter again.
Yeah.
So, or you shouldn't be, I should say.
Now, we want to get into your strategy. We want to talk about what worked for you in getting backers, your funding, all that kind of stuff. But I have one more question here. So you've launched a bunch of different projects on Kickstarter. Like I'm looking at one, the Wisp, the complete reimagining of the broom and dustpan. So you've created a few different types of products. You launched Cap Broom, the world's first shooting bottle opener. So I guess manufacturing is not something that's necessarily new to you. Was this the same system that you used to get each of these products manufactured?
Well, actually, those are products that I actually backed on Kickstarter. But for the manufacturing process, it's all similar, especially I do physical products. So I can't speak for other, I guess when I say physical products, plastic products for tooling and molding. So it's all similar, I would say. Especially
that was an error on my part right there.
No, it's okay.
Sorry about that.
That was actually another strategy. Backers want to see that you're backing projects on Kickstarter. So.
I totally misspoke there. I was just reading it very quickly, and I was like, "Oh man, look at these!
No,
those are the ones you backed." Yeah,
I wish.
Yeah, I apologize, but even so, doing your campaign and launching and raising that amount of money, I think there's a ton to be said for that. And right. That's really what I want to get into. I want to get into what worked for you when it came to the actual launch of the project. You've probably, I imagine, read a little bit online about having to do pre-launch, having to try and gather a crowd, and then you launch this project. So can you walk me through some of the high-level points of what you were doing leading up to the launch of the Kickstarter?
So my wife was in grad school. I was working a job that wasn't making much, so we just didn't have much money. And Kickstarter, it turns out the marketing side of it can get really expensive. So we wanted to announce our yoga flexor on Facebook, and my wife is more likable, so we posted it on her page to get more shares. So we actually posted to Facebook, and it can be scary telling your friends, showing your family your new idea, and it took off. I mean, we probably had 20K views, 30K views, and 200 shares just posting on Facebook.
This is a video. Right.
Our it ended up being our Kickstarter campaign video for Yoga Flexor 1.0. So basically 200 shares, 20K views. I mean, that basically was our first rush on launch day. Believe it was roughly around 7 to 8K.
Walk me through then that post. Did you have a link going to your pre-launch page? Did it go to your Kickstarter preview where people could comment? And also, did you have any kind of call to action, like please share this?
Right. So we did have an email list set up, and we would have people go sign up there just from that video post. But in our 2.0 campaign, we really focused on the email list. Didn't really do that for the first one because we were a new brand. The brand, just bringing brand awareness is really expensive, and we weren't that great at email marketing. So just from that Facebook post, having friends share, we would tell them to share, tag someone. We had a whole bunch of comments. So once we launched, we took that email list, took the comments, and followed up with every single person. Hey, we're on Kickstarter now.
And when you were talking about, you said 1.0 and 2.0, what do you mean there? Did you run a second campaign that I didn't see, or? I
am currently on Kickstarter running our 2.0 campaign.
Okay. Is it under a different name?
No, it's Yoga Flexor 2.0. And so it should be Yoga Flexor 2.0 Travel Gym.
Oh, okay. Because I was looking under your name, Anthony, and there's the
Right.
one.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I see. We actually wanted to start our own company Kickstarter instead of just my personal account.
Oh,
So
okay.
we started a company Kickstarter because we plan to branch out.
I see. Okay. This is clearing up a lot of my questions because I was like, I swear I saw more than one campaign there.
Right,
Um,
right.
okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Cool. So you basically you did this video which got a lot of shares, got a lot of views. You sent it to this landing page where people could sign up to be notified when this new campaign was going to come out. Sorry, I missed that. Did you also have like a call to action to ask them to share it in the post?
Yeah, so we're just like share it, like and comment, and we had a whole bunch of comments and 200 shares. So when we launched our 1.0 campaign, we followed up with every single comment. We sent out the email blast, and we resent that video out and let everyone know that we actually launched. So then it took off again. So 2 different times we used that same video starting with our friends and family, and it just branched out from there. That was free. So,
Man, that's a lot of organic traffic. Jeez, that's also something that's something that anyone can do. Just by having a high quality video. If you have a team, by posting on either all of your teammates' Facebook or the one that has the most reach, introducing that, asking people to like, to comment, to check it out if they're interested. That's something really anyone can do.
right. So I purchased my own camera. I shot the video myself. My wife was the model in the video. So that, I guess, that personal touch, people knew the model in the video made them want to share it. So when I purchased my camera, it was about $500. And I've been told, our 1.0 campaign kind of looks professional, actually. And I'm just like, I taught myself on YouTube how to, edit video or shoot video, lighting. So anyone can do it.
Now we have a few more tips that I want to get into. Some of the questions I want to ask you, particularly about Instagram ads, because I know that you did that, and also how you created a lookalike audience on Facebook. But before we get into that, I have to ask you here. So I know that running a campaign, running a Kickstarter is extremely stressful. It's very difficult. There's a lot of stuff you got to get done. There's a lot of times late nights and weekends. There's a lot of anxiety attached to it. And while it's 100% worth it, there's also always that cost, I think. So what is it that happened to you? I was reading that something happened to you, to your health throughout this process.
Yeah. So a couple days before we officially launched, I was having cold sweats at night. Couldn't sleep, had flu-like symptoms. That next morning, I got out of bed. I couldn't even walk. My legs were swelled up. And I called in, and they said, you need to go to the emergency room based on your symptoms. So I was at the emergency room. They had to give me 2 IVs. For the legs, I guess it's called erythema nodosum. Basically swelling in the legs. It looks like bruises. It's extremely painful. And the doctor told me that we ran a bunch of scans, blood work, and he said this is what I think stress induced. So 2 days before the launch, I actually was thinking to myself, I was like, my wife's going to have to launch a GoFundMe instead of a Kickstarter to pay for my funeral costs at this rate.
Oh, jeez.
So it was pretty scary. Yeah.
My gosh. Had you considered putting off the campaign, or was it kind of like, no, we're going to keep this?
No, I was all in. I was trying to get out of the hospital, and I was like, you need to go to bed at night, calm down a bit. But yeah, I was going to launch it.
That takes a lot of guts, man. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. It was scary for a bit there.
I guess it sort of even, I imagine, cemented your resolve. Like, if you're willing to go through that and willing to still say, yeah, we're launching this campaign in 2 days, it's going to happen. You're really committed to the process there. And it shows, you surpassed your goal. You had a really great campaign.
Yeah. And, I don't think people that are new to Kickstarter understand how difficult it is, how many hours you have to put in. I mean, if you're working a full-time job, get off work and you're working into 2 a.m. and you do that again and again and again. And if you want to leave your full-time job to do this full-time, you have to even work longer. So it's very stressful.
I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount.
I think any kind of major change that you're making in your life is always going to be difficult. It's never going to be easy to make a super, career-changing decision. That you're doing this one thing and now you're going to do this other thing. Or you're going to launch this entire new product into the universe that's going to change people's lives. And that's something that now they can use to solve problems in your life. When you're doing something big, it's never going to be easy.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about get more into the strategy there. And thank you so much for sharing that story. I think sometimes we can sort of look at some of these campaigners and some of these entrepreneurs and sort of be like, wow, like this dude raised $30K on Kickstarter. Like that's amazing. I could never do that. Or you sort of look at these people not as human beings, but as entrepreneurs that are just like grinding it out. So sharing that, I think it makes you a little bit more human. But
they make it look easy, don't they?
Yeah, I know,
They make
right?
it look easy.
Yeah. So when it comes to the Instagram ads, I know that's something that worked really well for you. Can you share with us a little bit about that? What you did, how well it did for you, advice on that?
Yeah, so with the Instagram ads, I needed to pick up my campaign after that initial launch. So I would use the same video because video for us, especially with a fitness product, video converts way better. I'm not even going to waste my time with pictures anymore. So every time someone would comment on my Instagram video from the ad, I would DM them and I would say, hey, have you heard of Kickstarter? And typically they would say no. And I would explain to them and say, hey, if you wanted to support our project, I saw you commented on our post. Here's our page. And I would say 2 to 3 out of 20 people that commented and I DM'd them, they would back me.
That's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah. And I mean, it's expensive. I mean, it can get expensive getting those 20 comments. I mean, it's a pretty decent conversion, but you got to get the comments and the shares and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So you were seeing that as, I guess, boosting your project while it was live.
Yep, absolutely.
The other thing you did was Facebook ads, right?
Yep.
So can you tell us also a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what worked for me is I went to Crowdster and I downloaded their backer directory. And it's about 15,000 emails of people that have been on Kickstarter or backers. And when you upload that into Facebook, I think Facebook grabbed about 2,500 to 3,000 of them. And you can create a lookalike audience based off of those emails. And that picked up at the end of my campaign. And there's a lot of split testing that you have to do. You can't just download the emails, put them into Facebook and think it's going to convert. It took a ton of testing. But once I found the one ad that took off, I closed out of all the other ads and just doubled down on that.
How much was that responsible for bringing pledges to your campaign?
At the end, I would say I had probably 60, 70 conversions. I don't know. I would say maybe $6,000. Basically, that whole last week was my Crowdster directory.
So $6,000. And how much would you say from the Instagram ads that brought to your project?
Oh, I don't know. I would say maybe 4 grand, five. It's hard to say for sure. I mean, when I was sending so many emails or DMs through that, it was kind of tough to follow. Some of them would back right away because you can send a link through the DM actually, so they can click. But others would do it maybe a couple days later.
The reason why I asked that is that I really want to help get people into the mindset of a business owner. I think when we spend or we buy things in our personal life, we tend to evaluate things as being costly, expensive, etc. When we're a business owner, the more important thing is to look at the ROI of what we're spending. So if you're spending money for Facebook ads or something like a Crowdster's directory where you can download emails, or you're spending it on Instagram, the cost almost doesn't matter. The most important thing is that going to either be 2x, 3x, or 4x in terms of bringing money to your project? So does it make sense to spend, say, $500 if you bring 10 grand to your project? 100% yes.
Yep.
That's really the mindset that I think is really important when it comes to spending money on things like, advertisements or things that can help boost your project in that way.
Yeah. And for my product, especially a fitness product, Instagram was converting. I had to, I tried the Facebook right away. I had to cancel all those out, and Instagram was converting at a positive ROI. And then when I did the Crowdster, I had to borrow money from a friend, and I said, hey, look, I'll give you 10% of every sale. This ad is taking off and I'm getting tight on money. If you can help me out. And he lent me, some money. I think it was maybe a couple grand. He made 10% on each sale. And I didn't have to get a PR agency that could take up to 30% of each backer that you get. So
yeah, well said here. So this is a ton of good information. Like, man, this is a lot of good stuff, a lot of good tips. I think hearing your story also, I just found to be fascinating. I think that, leading towards the end of the project, this is something that we rarely talk about. But things like having to ship out your rewards, really dealing with shipping and fulfillment, etc. You gave me a few really good points pre-interview here, some of the things that were on your mind. I'd love it if we could just close out by asking you about that and also about your new project. So when it came to the actual ending period of your project, and you were having to ship out packages and you were having to do these things, what actually happened that you had to notify your backers of?
Yeah, so right before we started mass production, I had an issue with my tooling and molding, and this was going to eat up quite a bit of money. So I made the decision to use some of the shipping money that I had put aside to fix that. So, because I knew I had a loan set up. Well, that loan fell through right when my packages got into the US. So it was complete panic mode. And so that set me back about a month on delivering to backers. But they were really understanding of it, and I thank them for that. But if I didn't fix the product, fix the molding situation, they would have had a product that could break down over time. So then when I shipped to Canada, it turns out with UPS there was a handling fee for products worth $20 or more, and that was about $15-16 that the customers were having to pick up, and I was not made aware of this by UPS. Mm-hmm. So a lot of refunds were made, and it was kind of a mess. It's definitely my first time shipping to Canada.
Jeez, that's insane, man.
It was not fun, but we figured it out, and still happy that we did that campaign, and our backers love the product. So
I think that number one, yeah, that really sucks. And that's a really big learning lesson. And obviously, as you're going forward, now you know that you're not going to make that mistake again. But I do think it says something about your values as a company. The fact that you're willing to be upfront about these things with your backers, that's really what people are looking for. Kickstarter is not like you're buying stuff on an online store. It's you're supporting the process of innovation. And the fact that you're honest and upfront, I think that's really encouraging, and it just sort of preserves your brand. Had you tried to get around it or something like that, you're not just going to cause bad ripple effects. So that's also kudos, man, for being up and honest with that.
Yeah, and I mean, transparency is important. I mean, that's a reason why part of the reason why they're going to back you is they want to be part of the process. You don't need to show them that everything's easy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to talk a little bit about this campaign, which you now have live, which is the Yoga Flexure 2.0 travel gym. You can basically take this with you. I'll let you actually tell the listeners a little bit about this and also where they can check it out.
Yeah, so I know this is a podcast and it's hard to envision it. It kind of looks like a roller pin that you would roll dough out with. Basically, we took 5 training accessories and we rolled it into one. So we have our main component, the yoga mat, and then we have a weighted body bar that attaches to that yoga mat via zipper, and it also doubles as a massage roller. And then we have resistance bands running through and weighted handles. So it's a travel gym. You're able to do full workouts on it and bring it basically anywhere. My wife likes to say yoga's in our name, but it's not our only game, because it's true. This product is used in Pilates, bar, HIIT, which is high intensity interval training. And that's basically a summary of it. It's kind of hard to explain. That's why I had to make a prototype of it.
Even
originally.
We talk about like doing yoga while you're traveling, you're on vacation, but even if you wanted to, doing it in cool places, like going down to the beach and bringing this with you, being able to do yoga there and also some Pilates, or going out into like an open field where it's a really nice day and doing yoga there. You don't need all of this equipment. You just bring this, what it looks like, this really cool bar. Like you described, it's kind of like a rolling pin. It kind of looks like that.
Yeah, people like to joke around and say that in my advertisements, but we packaged all that for you. So once you're done using it, you just roll it all up into one, put it in the corner, put it in the closet. And we've found that, moms, people that are working a lot love this thing, because you can bang out a quick 15-minute workout. And, like I said before, you can do so many different things, Pilates, high intensity interval training. So they're able to get a really efficient workout and quickly and get back to what they need to do.
Awesome. Where can people go to learn more about Yoga Flexure 2.0? Where can they check out your project? What should they type in?
Yeah, so we are on Kickstarter again. It's Yoga Flexure 2.0 Travel Gym. We're looking to make some improvements from feedback from our previous backers. And we're going to be launching a training app as well to bring accountability to not only our backers, but us. So you can check us out on Kickstarter and help us spread the word.
Very cool. I'll also include that as a link in the show notes. This is lots of good information. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of this, because I think for someone who's just getting started, to hear even your system for getting manufacturers, or to hear what worked well for you when it came to building up that initial crowd for your first project, the focus on emails, the focus on the landing page, even doing other things like Instagram ads or Crowdster, etc. I think those are really good action items. The last thing I want to ask you and sort of leave you with is to either provide a word of encouragement. You could give a final tip, basically something that were you starting this process right now, you would want to hear. It's a really horrific, I think, story. The fact that you were in the hospital right before your project was launching. But what did you need to hear then? Would love it if I could give you the final word here.
Well, what I would say, if you're an idea guy and you're always talking about ideas, you need to do it, build it, and then if you already have it built and you want to take the Kickstarter route, don't be afraid to tell your friends and family. That was my biggest problem. I was afraid to, and that ultimately boosted our campaign in the beginning and brought us to where we're at today. So don't be afraid. just tackle it. Talk to Reddit. Don't be they're brutal, but you'll get honest feedback. Just stop talking and actually do it.
Helps you go from wantrepreneur to now entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show. We'll have to have you back if you have another Kickstarter campaign, and look forward to watching your progress.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. I am revved up. I am rearing to go. I've been doing this 30-day challenge where basically I'm trying to get fit for the summer months. So for the last 30 days, I've been running regularly. I've been eating healthy. I've been really trying to get back into the fitness mindset and sort of recreate some of those habits. So my energy levels right now are just great. I love it. The other thing with the 30-day challenge is I think that a lot of the times we set goals and it's almost like this big insurmountable obstacle. So my way usually of achieving new goals is I'll set first a specific time frame, usually like 30 days, 2 weeks, where I sort of get back into the mindset of fitness, or I get back into the mindset of writing if I'm writing a new book. And I'll use that time to sort of reestablish some of my old habits. And I'll also realize things like, oh, I forgot. I used to listen to motivational videos before I'd go on a run. Or man, I need to download some more music for working out and running. It sort of puts me back into more of a prime state. And then I go like really hard and really focused on the goal for the next 30 days, the next leading up to wherever my deadline is. So that's what I'm doing, or what I have been doing for the last, month or so. I've had some obstacles. I had a period where I was sick there for about a week and a half, but it's always about charging up that hill with whatever it's crowdfunding, Kickstarter, entrepreneurship, or doing things in your personal life like setting fitness goals, or even a goal to maybe work on yourself and maybe expand your emotional intelligence or get to know yourself better. I think it's always about easing into those things so that you can actually establish a habit over time, rather than just trying to like throw yourself out there into the middle of traffic and try to learn how to, maybe ride a motorcycle. So that's sort of my process there. I'd also love to hear from you. This podcast is not just about crowdfunding. It's also about improving your life in small ways, whether that's now being able to do the career that you want, now working towards doing something that you're passionate about that's meaningful to you. That's really my goal with the show, is to, number one, give you the good tips, advice, strategy. You can go through some of the archives of this show to the other episodes. You can see that. You can hear from guests just like this one, but also to inspire you, to motivate you, to get you revved up just like I am, to go out there, to be hungry, and to try to strive more and have big goals for your life. Finally, the last thing I want to say before we close out today's episode is, if you are interested in checking out Crowdster is a software tool that will help you market, promote, and to a certain degree manage your crowdfunding campaign, whether it's on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. One of the things that a lot of people like are you can download data and information on backers from their actual tool, and you can use this to create lookalike audiences on Facebook. So if you're interested in that and you also want to help out the show, you can go to crowdcrux.com/crowdster. That is crowdcrux.com/crowdster. That's KROWDSTER. So Crowdster with a K. You go to that link, you sign up, you can check out the service, you can learn a little bit more. And if you do, we'll get a small commission at no expense to you. Put that back into creating more episodes for you and also helping more entrepreneurs on the path. Again, my name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.